Oh, that's beautiful. My name is Jeff Morgan. I am here with Dad Talk today, and I am here with Irene
Armendariz-Jackson.
Armendariz-Jackson.
You rolled your R?
Well, I'll tell you, I used to take Spanish a long time ago.
Love
but
it.
anyway, so tell us what you're running for, what you're doing, and I saw that you don't look like you're a fan of Mr.
Vito Beto.
Yeah, exactly.
Francis O'Rourke.
Francis O'Rourke.
Yes.
That sounds like
Robert Francis O'Rourke.
Robert. That sounds like a good Mexican name.
Right? I named all my kids that.
Oh, okay. And then you called them Beto, or?
Of course.
Okay, good. So what you're saying is that he represents you.
Of course not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Who does he represent?
Himself.
And the socialists.
And the communists and the cartels that I'm sure are funding some of his efforts.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so tell us about yourself, what you're running for.
I'm Irene Armendariz-Jackson. I'm a 50-year-old wife, grandma, mother of 3 beautiful daughters. And I have my parents who are still alive, thank God. They're Mexican immigrants who immigrated to the United States legally.
Legally. That's a good concept.
Yes. I'm also the wife of a Border Patrol agent.
Wow.
So we know the truth about what's going on the border. And it breaks my heart to be completely ignored by by our side, the right side.
Yes.
Because we are making strides in El Paso. El Paso has had Democrat leadership for over 50 years, but I'm not going to put it all on the Democrats.
Right.
Where have the Republicans been?
Where have they been? Exactly.
Yes, and so somebody like me with no political resume, just seeing what's happening in my country, and saying this is absolutely not acceptable. I started getting involved, and then at the end, I said I was asked to run.
Yeah.
So we got involved in running, and here we are at CPAC for the first time, just loving being around like-minded people. Yeah. And you know, I'm a first generation born in the United States, and for all those people that are actually thinking about immigrating to the United States legally, we are preserving the American dream for you.
Absolutely. You know, the first time, and in fact, I would say the only time I was in El Paso, I was a teenager, and I went down there with Youth with a Mission. We were doing Bible distribution in Juarez. So, but anyway, it was a neat time to be down there. But you're from that area, and how are things right now in the city, in El Paso, and what do you see at the border that's really concerning you?
The infiltration. I am seeing a complete invasion, and this should concern everybody. This is not just a border issue. But if we don't stop it in the border, then it's coming to a school, an elementary near you. What do I mean? It's coming. It's the fentanyl, because Border Patrol agents are so busy processing people, and that's not what they were hired to do. My husband, being a Border Patrol agent, just says, let us do our jobs. We took an oath to protect our country, and the government, the president himself, has completely stripped that power away from them. You tell me, how is it that one man in the nation can, with a drop of a pen, change our whole immigration system? These are laws that were passed by our legislative branch. Why does he get to annul them?
Yeah, that is a very good question, because it is actually executive abuse, it's tyranny, it's everything else. It's the misuse of executive orders, or whatever he wants to call it. It is not the United States of America. It is not a representative government that we have right now. It is tyrannical. So what really caught me is that you said our country, because people would say, but you're Mexican at heart, and you know, you're Mexican American, or maybe you're American Mexican. But you're saying you're American, and you're not denying your culture.
No, I love my tacos. Don't mess with my tacos.
And everything else. But what the question that I have is that a lot of the people from Mexico, or Hispanic, or whomever, they're led to believe that somehow we're Democrats. Discuss that, because the values of the Mexican people are much more conservative. And actually align with the Republican Party, and yet there seems to be some type of a brainwashing or something that takes place that many Mexicans think, I'm a Democrat. But you don't believe that. Tell us why.
Well, because it was back during the George Sons election that, because of my pro-life stand, it just didn't make sense.
Oh, because you're pro-life?
I'm an abolitionist, actually. I'm not a pro-lifer, I'm an abolitionist.
Well, I am too.
I don't believe babies should be killed in the mom's womb for no reason. But it didn't make sense.
Right.
And so when we were knocking on doors back in 2020 and 2019, when we would talk about, especially if we saw a cross on the screen door or even a Virgin Mary, and I'm not a Catholic, but I would say, I see you're a person of faith.
Right.
You must be pro-life. Absolutely. And I would tell them, I'm running because I want to make sure that the laws in our country protect the babies in our womb. They wouldn't ask me what party I'm running for.
Right.
What party I'm running with. They said absolutely. They would grab my information.
Right.
And of course, Escobar, the lady that I'm running against, is so disliked even by her own party,
right,
that when I would say I'm Irene Armendariz-Jackson and I'm running for U.S. Congress against Veronica Escobar, they would say, give me that. I can't stand that woman.
Yeah.
There was definitely a lot of fraud, but the reality is that even the Republicans have completely abandoned it. And now we have to talk to people about, which 85% of the population in El Paso is Hispanic,
right,
is the values. Let's talk about the values. That's already inside of them.
Right.
We're just drawing them out and hopefully taking them straight to the ballot.
And I'm glad you're talking about the value section here, because the Democrats do not shy back from talking about values, but misrepresenting values to get people in. I'm from Pennsylvania originally, so I remember that when Governor Casey became governor, he was Catholic, very pro-life. I think it was in 1991, 1992 when Bill Clinton had the nomination and so on. Governor Casey was shoved aside, even though he was a Democratic governor from the state of Pennsylvania, because he was pro-life. So, I mean, and the party then took a divide. We will not have a pro-life person on the Democratic national platform. Now, I know that there are some Democrats who are pro-life, but by and large, the party itself has chosen a very anti-life. You can kill a child in the womb at any time, at any reason. And this goes directly against the Mexican values,
of course,
and against the Catholic values,
of course,
and against American values.
Exactly.
So you're finding a lot of traction with this issue then?
Yes, of course. That's one of the main ones, and I want to, people in the Republican side, on the conservative side, shy away about talking about immigration, thinking that people like myself, brown people, were for illegal immigration. I haven't found one legal immigrant in my city that's for illegal immigration, except our representative and Beto.
Yeah.
Well, he's not brown, but she's actually, people ask me. Actually, people ask me if I'm her, because we kind of resemble each other, but we're not related. But we're totally opposite, especially when it comes on the immigration issue.
Okay.
And I believe that even my cousin, if he or she wants to come to the United States, absolutely they need to go through the process. Now, another thing that we don't hear in the media is, I don't know if we see one of my signs that says Kamala hates Mexicans. And let me tell you why we came up with that sign.
Okay.
Because in a border city like El Paso, I have families in the Ciudad Juarez area. My aunts and my cousins are still there. Do you know that if they have a legal visitor's pass, they can't cross over yet?
Wow.
The border is still close to them.
Wow.
And so all the commerce, all the economic establishments right on what we call the strip, which is right across the border, they're suffering. We're killing small businesses on the American side because these people, if the gallon of milk is $6 in Ciudad Juarez, they come and buy 2 gallons of milk, even if they're $3 on the American side, which is a little expensive, but they can buy 2 gallons. And they cross with their little grocery cart. The border is closed to Mexicans. The Biden administration has sent out a very clear message to Mexicans: is you don't matter and we hate you and stay out of America.
That is very interesting. You don't see that being talked about.
No.
There's another thing I'd like to mention. I used to teach English as a second language. So I was up in Washington State, Oregon State, and there were a lot of migrant workers that were there. And, so in our university, at the colleges that I taught at, they would say, well, you know what, we know they're here illegally. We are not Immigration Nationalization Services. And they would make them up a Social Security number, fake number. And I felt 2 different ways about it. Number one, there were illegal people here. And at the same time, I also knew that there was a lot of corruption back in Mexico. And here was a person who came across the country doing a lot of really tough work because he loved his family. Or some girls were doing it at the same time. And they were sent here to be that person. And I think what we really need to be doing is talking about freedom, purging corruption. Strong American leadership will help Mexico.
course.
And we'll help the people down there. If we are humanitarians at heart, we do not want to have weak American leadership that disregards the law. We want to have strong leaders that actually uphold the laws. Do you agree with that?
100%. And you know, are you happy with the immigration situation right now? I'm asking you to yes, no?
No.
So this is a consequence of that kind of thinking back then.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay.
I know.
They love their family, so it's okay. No, it's not okay.
Right.
At any point, the first thing you do when you come to my country is you knock down the door.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So what was very interesting, because I talked, with some people that had been involved in church, they would say, we had a church and ministry to illegals, but then they would get converted, and then they would say, now I have the conflict, do I obey God or do I stay here? And the church would never grow, because people started to walk with Christ, and then they said, we've got to go back.
And that's absolutely, the churches the pastors, because we work with a lot of pastors in El Paso, especially Spanish-speaking pastors, and when they were receiving 1,500 illegals in their church, I called them and I said, look, help me understand.
Yeah.
Because as a born-again Christian, as an evangelical, I cannot understand how you would allow and support illegal immigration. The Bible says that lawlessness is a sin.
Right.
So they said, oh, you know what, sister, they're coming to the feet of Christ and they're surrendering their life. Okay, after they do that, do you tell them they have to go back?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And I said, so what are we doing? Now, that was in 2019, because you know this has happened before.
Right.
And so they're the churches that are absolutely not receiving any illegals this time around.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I was also a missionary in the Middle East, where there were a lot of Iraqi refugees there. Now, the Iraqi situation was a little bit different because they had no passport from a government back in Iraq, because there was no government. So they were in another country. They were illegal to be there. It was just a messed up situation.
Well, they were the ones. Their government is the one that rejects any Western nationalities. And even when I go to Israel, they actually stamp it. They actually stamp outside of my passport.
Right,
they give you
paper.
Why? Because if you want to go to an Arab country, they're not going to let you in.
Right. I know there's a lot of issues with, because God has. God also gives us in the Bible, talks about the refugees.
Right.
Jesus Christ was a refugee. When he went down, he had to go to Egypt.
His parents did.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And God sent him.
Right.
I doubt people are hearing from God and telling them, go and invade the United States.
No. I agree. But I'm just saying that the heart of God is not against people. There are some difficult predicaments. But at the same time, what you're saying is upholding the laws, doing it the right way. We love the people. One of the best ways we actually express love for them is by telling their governments, clean up your mess. Be a strong American leader. Abide by the law. Get rid of the cartels. Get rid of
those cartels.
Yeah. But we also talk about, at Dad Talk today, we talk a lot about the importance of family.
Oh, yes.
And you mentioned family.
Yes.
How important is family to you?
Number one, besides God. It's God, my husband, and then my family, my kids, and my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
In El Paso, my husband being a Border Patrol agent, he had several opportunities to leave El Paso, but my parents are still living in El Paso, and my two other sisters have had to leave. They didn't want to leave, but they had to leave because I live in a poverty-stricken city.
Yeah.
And so that's what the Democrat leadership has left us, including useless Beto and useless Veronica.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I always tell people, love of country and of God starts at home.
Yeah.
And so my kids, because we have older ones and we have a 13-year-old, when they have tried to sway very forcefully, not, people say, oh, you got to do it in no, I'm still the parent. And this is my castle.
Right.
And in my castle, I speak whatever I want.
Right.
And I would tell them, you're absolutely wrong. Well, Mom, what about the humanitarian side? But there's nothing more humanitarian in the United States of America than to tell people the gospel and point them to the cross. Number one, because that has eternal consequences.
Right.
And number two, allow them to live in complete freedom by coming to the United States legally. Then they're able to not have to be in the shadows. They're able to work and be and progress for the sake of their families.
Right. So the whole thing with the family, you mentioned that you lived in a poverty-stricken city. Families help prevent poverty, don't
Right.
they? Single parenthood
Is the
creates
number
poverty.
one cause
Right.
for, yes, poverty.
Divorce contributes to
Absolutely.
poverty and crime and delinquency
Right.
and gangs and addiction problems
Right.
and mental problems and all sorts of other issues as well. So you're a person who wants to see families stay strong.
I want a mom and a dad in the home with their children. And if, look, I don't have a perfect marriage. And I know some people might say and see us from the outside in and say, oh, but she has such a loving husband. Oh, he has such a loving wife. We've struggled. We're independent individuals.
Right.
But because our belief is scriptural, the Bible says, God himself says, God hates divorce.
He hates divorce.
He hates divorce. So when we had issues and even the thought of separation would come in,
Right.
how are we going to present our soul when we come before God
Right.
and say, I know you hated divorce,
But I'm an exception.
yes, I'm unique.
I'm an illegal.
I'm unique. So we went ahead and we struggled through it, and now we've been married almost 28 years.
Well, congratulations.
We have 4 beautiful grandbabies,
Yeah.
3 daughters,
Yeah.
and you know what? I am so glad that we fought for righteousness and we continue.
Yeah.
Now it's in a different spectrum, but without my husband's support,
Yeah.
I would not be able to do this.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great story to hear. What people see in the movies is that
Happily
love.
ever after.
Yeah,
No.
and that's not the reality.
Right.
The reality is marriage sometimes is one of the most difficult things.
But it's the most rewarding.
It's the most rewarding. Well, thank you so much. Now, if anybody wants to be involved in your
Yes.
campaign to help out, and
Which
also,
I would love.
okay, give them that message, how they can contact you. But also, do you have a message in Spanish?
Claro que sí.
Okay, go ahead and do it, and then tell us both in Spanish and in English how they can contact you and follow you and be involved if they wish to.
Amigos de América, yo soy Irene Armendariz-Jackson y soy republicana. ¿Por qué soy republicana? Porque mis valores son de fe, son de trabajo duro, son de sostener a mi familia y preservar el sueño americano. Estoy luchando por ti, América. Tú que estás aquí en Estados Unidos, no te sientas solo porque habemos muchos conservadores que somos igual que tú. Me llamo Irene Armendariz-Jackson y esa es mi página de internet, irenearmendariz-jackson.com. Tenemos que luchar por el futuro de nuestros hijos y nuestros nietos. El día de mañana yo no quiero que mis nietos me digan, ¿por qué no luchaste por mí? Sentarnos y platicar para platicar acerca de qué hermosa era la libertad bajo un régimen comunista. Yo no quiero eso, yo quiero que me digan gracias por haberte levantado en la adversidad y luchado por mis derechos, abuela. Así que América, yo soy Irene Armendariz-Jackson y necesito tu apoyo. $1, $2, ve a mi página y suscríbete. America, I want you to understand that you are not alone. There are so many conservatives in this nation. The left wants you to believe that you're the only one that feels this way. It is a lie from the pit of hell. And I'm Irene Armendariz-Jackson, and that's my website, irenearmendariz-jackson.com. If you can go to it, subscribe, follow us, I will tell you the truth about what's happening on the border. Being the spouse of a Border Patrol agent, it breaks my heart to see that many on both sides are not speaking the truth. But we must preserve the American dream. So when your grandchildren grow up and we talk about how good freedom is, it's not as how good freedom was, but how good freedom is. I'm fighting for you. You're not alone. Help is on the way. Go to irenearmendariz-jackson.com. $1, $10, $25, it all matters. God bless you, America, and America matters, and Americans matter.
Can you spell the website out? Because
sure, it's IreneArmendariz-Jackson.com. You can find me on Twitter, Irene for Congress. Armendariz for El Paso is all my other social media, but if you go on Twitter, it's pretty simple. Irene for Congress, and my website's there also.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming over. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll be right back. Thank you.